All right, Broncos country, we are here for the Week 1 studs and duds for the Denver Broncos following their 20-12 victory over the Tennessee Titans. Now, I wanted to record this video last night and get it up to you early this morning. However, I obviously go to the games with my dad who has season tickets, and my voice was completely shot, so that was not going to be able to happen. But we are here with the Week 1 studs and duds. Now, I'm not going to be able to include everyone, so if there are some players who I missed or things that I missed that should be on this list, let me know in the comment section below. And if you do enjoy this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. And let's jump right in to this video. So starting off, we have a stud in Pat Surtain, right? I mean, it's clear, the reigning defensive player of the year. He picked up right where he left off, right? As the nearest defender on his 34 coverage snaps, Pat Surtain did not allow a single reception and was targeted once by Cam Ward, and he broke up that pass, and that pass was to Calvin Ridley. Now, Pat Surtain, he lined up against Calvin Ridley 27 times of his 32 routes run, which is an 84%. And yeah, Pat Surtain locked down every single defender that was on the field, was thrown out once, and yeah, I mean, he's picking up right where he left off. Pat Surtain is a stud, and honestly, you could say that for the entire defense with how well they played and honestly how much they bailed out this offense. Now, this one is tough because Bo Nix is one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player in the NFL right now, but I have to give him a dud. He did not look sharp. Obviously, you can see the stats here. 25 for 40 for 176 yards is not great. That's obviously very pass heavy too, and we'll talk about the play calling here later. Only had 176 yards, one touchdown to Courtland Sutton, but two interceptions on 50-50 balls. They were just passes that Bo Nix didn't need to throw. Bo Nix actually started off the game pretty strong, completing his first 4 passes, and then it kind of went downhill, not hitting his next 3. Now, there were some things going wrong with the offense, right? Lucas Krull didn't run the right route. So I'm not putting it entirely on Bo Nix's shoulders, but it was not a pretty outing, right? The 2 interceptions, like I mentioned, then he was strip sacked, lost the ball, had a fumble, only had a passer rating of a 60, which was not great. And some other things that I noticed, we'll show a picture of this later in the video when we're talking about someone else. On that 4th down, when the Broncos decide to go for it with Marvin Mims and Courtland Sutton running the 2 crossing routes, Courtland Sutton was wide open, right? I saw it in the stadium. I'm sure a lot of you guys saw it on TV. Courtland Sutton was open. Marvin Mims was open too. He had a step on him, but obviously Bo Nix didn't have the time, and we'll talk about the offensive line here later, but missing that, a Courtland Sutton wide open throw, and then, overthrowing Marvin Mims. That's tough. And then I think the other thing that sucked, and I don't know if it was Nix's fault or Luke Wattenberg's fault, but it was it was 4th, or I think it was 3rd and 3 inches, something like that. And we were going for it on a quarterback sneak. The ball was fumbled, and we actually lost yardage on a quarterback sneak, which is crazy. So there was that center quarterback exchange with the snap that wasn't very pretty. So there's that in there. I'm hoping Bo Nix bounces back this week because in the preseason, he didn't look super sharp, and I know it's the preseason, so we can't really judge off of that. I was hoping the rust was going to wear off after getting a decent amount of time in the 3rd preseason game against the Saints, and, started off strong, then kind of went down, like I said, with the interception, the forced fumble, and then throwing an interception on the first drive of the second half. But then I thought he started to improve once we got the run game more involved. But as for right now, Bo Nix is a dud, hoping he can bounce back next week and get a stud rating. Then next up, we got Nick Bonitto, and like I said, you could do this with a majority of the players on the defense. And I'm sorry, my voice is still pretty shot, but on 22 pass rush attempts from Nick Bonitto, he had 9 pressures, which is a 40.9% pressure rating on his snaps, which is crazy. He had 1 sack, 3 tackles. Nick Bonito got after Cam Ward. He was going up against Dan Moore, who the Titans recently extended to. So Nick Bonito had a fantastic game. He was one of 6 Bronco players to get a sack yesterday on Cam Ward, and we're showing why we paid him that $120 million, why he is the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the Denver Broncos. He's going out there and showing it. So good for Nick Bonito. He is getting a stud for this week. As for the dud, we're going with the offensive line, and specifically, I think I have to go with Luke Wattenberg and Ben Powers. To me, from the stadium, they just looked like they were always getting beat. They were getting a lot of penalties, Ben Powers in that one. But yeah, you can see right here, this is the crossing route, and I have Luke Wattenberg marked on the screen because he's lost, right? His guy's by him, and Quinn Miners is trying to block Jeffrey Simmons and the other guy by himself, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's not a great look. And then we'll talk about this. Obviously, Cortland Sutton, right here, if you can see my mouse, he's going to be open right here. And Marvin Mims is open. He's got the step. So I don't hate that Bo Nix threw it to Marvin Mims. Just obviously overthrew him, and obviously the pressure is in his face, so Bo Nix has to get rid of this ball very quickly. Jeffrey Simmons is almost home. We have I can't read what number that is. The running back's trying to get back and help, but Bo Nix is getting pressured here, so he has to get it away quickly, which is why I think he might not have seen Sutton, or he overthrew Marvin Mims because he had to throw it before he wanted to. But then Luke Wattenberg here in the offensive line, this is just unacceptable to allow this type of pressure, right? You have to block your guy, and you have to give Bo Nix a little more time in the pocket to complete the throw. So I did think the offensive line struggled in that area, as well as I didn't think they were great at run blocking. I thought obviously the running backs picked up the steam in the second half, and they improved in the second half, but here in the first half, I was not impressed with our offensive line, with how much pressure they were letting up on Bo Nix, but also the run blocking, specifically in the interior with Ben Powers and Luke Wattenberg. Hopefully they can bounce back next week. Then, moving on, I'm going to give J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, I'm going to give them a stud, because the first half, I think we had 4 rushing attempts, something like that. We did not run the ball a whole lot in the first half. But then in the second half, when we started to incorporate the run game more, that's when the running back started to take off. That's when Bo Nix started to improve, because we were establishing the run, and we actually had a run game, right? 6 carries, 70 yards for 11.7 yards per carry. That was R.J. Harvey's stat line. And then J.K. Dobbins had 16 carries for 63 yards with 3.9 per carry and 1 touchdown to give us, obviously, the 20 points, not including, obviously, the PAT. But, yeah, I thought the running backs played really well. Once we established the run game, that's when I thought Bo Nix started to improve. And I will say, one thing I do want to mention again on Bo Nix, there was a lot of times when he started to, it looked like he was going to scramble, and then he would throw the football. Sometimes I wish Bo Nix would have just pulled it down and continued to run with it, because he can make plays with his legs, and I wish he wouldn't just have forced some throws. Some throws were good ideas. Other times they looked forced. I wish Bo Nix would have just pulled it down and kept the ball sometimes. Just a last note on that. But the running backs, I thought they played really well in the second half once we started to give them more opportunities and more carries. Dud, I'm going with special teams. The special teams today was not great. Starting with the kick coverage, right? We score the touchdown. Titans have horrible clock management. We go down. Bo Nix finds Cortland Sutton for a touchdown, and we make it a 10-6 game. And then the special teams allows a 71-yard return from Chimere Dike to set them up for another field goal to kick before half, which makes it a 9-10 game, which was not great. It's not great. And then you obviously have the one muffed punt from Marvin Mims, which Marvin hardly does that. You know, obviously I was frustrated in the moment, but I still have confidence as Marvin as a returner. It just sucks that he did muff that one punt. Luckily, it didn't come back to hurt us, because our defense got back-to-back sacks to pull the Titans out of field goal range. So We were able to escape that one. Only surrendered 3 to the long punt return because it was the end of half. The Titans just sent their field goal unit out there to get the free points. And then we muffed the punt. That doesn't come back to hurt us, but special teams was a dud this week. Another stud, again, some other players on the defense, pass rushers, Zach Allen, Jonah Ellis, and Jonathan Cooper all make this list. Zach Allen had 1 tackle, 1 sack. Then you have Jonah Ellis with 2 tackles, 1 sack. Same thing with Jonathan Cooper, 2 tackles, 1 sack. And the Denver Broncos defense in the entire second half gave up -2 net yards and only allowed 2 first downs in the entire second half, which is crazy. The defense locked in. They are the strong suit of this team, right? So we do need to improve in terms of our offense and the offense being more efficient and not having this close of games where we get heart attacks against a team that had the first overall pick in the league last year, right? And the offense is actually scoring. The defense can make stops. Then I will feel a lot more comfortable. We just can't be the cardiac Broncos right now. But yeah, defense locked in. Like I said, -2 net yards and only 2 first downs in the second half is fantastic. Dud, I'm going the play calling in the first half. We really limited the running game in the first half, like I mentioned before. I think we only had 4 rushes or 4 rushing attempts in the first half, which just can't happen because it's going to make the play action pass not being effective. Like I haven't mentioned as a second point, you're not going to fool anyone if you've only rushed it 4 times and you're starting to run play action passes. Not going to fool the defense, and it kind of made the offense one-dimensional. Felt like the Titans kind of knew we were going to pass it in the first half, so they didn't really put their efforts into stopping the run, and it just felt like that made it harder for Bo Nix to complete the passes because we didn't have that balanced rushing, passing attack. But that's just how I felt. I do think Sean Payton's going to improve. He's one of the best play callers, one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. So, sometimes I feel like we have this conversation every year after a few games, like, what was Sean Payton doing with the play calling? So this is one of the times, but I have full confidence that Sean Payton is going to bounce back here in week 2 when we travel to Indianapolis to play the Colts. Stud, I'm going to give it to Courtland Sutton, who was fantastic today. 9 targets, 6 receptions, didn't have any drops, had 61 yards, averaged 10.2 per catch, and had the touchdown, obviously, in the first half. And there was another long reception. I think it was like a 20-yard reception. Bo Nix found Courtland Sutton. Bo Nix made a beautiful throw. So, he did show some flashes, right? Showed us the Bo Nix that we saw last year. But it was called back for a hold, and I think it was Ben Powers who had that hold. But Sutton was fantastic. He was that reliable target, and he helped us get the win, right? Finding the first down, just being a reliable target for Bo Nix. Another stud, I'm going with Talanoa Hufanga, who looked fantastic in his Broncos debut. He was flying around, and he was everywhere on the field, right? You can see 10 tackles, 7 solo, 3 assists, and he even had that forced fumble on Tony Pollard. Talanoa Hufanga made his presence felt not only in stopping the run, but in the pass coverage as well. He just was everywhere. Every time I looked up, it felt like Hufanga was a part of the play and making the tackle. So he had a fantastic Denver Broncos debut. And then, you know what? I'm going to give a stud to Jeremy Crawshaw. A lot of Broncos country was hating on rookie punter Jeremy Crawshaw in the preseason, right? Not punting it far enough. And I do think they were working in the preseason to get his hang time up, because the problem has never been his leg and the distance he can punt. It's just getting the hang time up so that the coverage units can get down and make a stop. And so the ball just doesn't land there and there's no one in sight. So they get a free, 5-10 extra yards while the coverage team is still running down. Crawshaw today, yesterday, had 3 punts for 144 yards, averaged 48 yards per punt, with his longest punt being 52 yards, and all 3 of his punts landed inside the 20, right? He pinned the Titans back. Crawshaw looked fantastic, so take a breath, Broncos country, because even though he didn't perform in the preseason, sometimes they're working on stuff in the preseason that we don't even know. So Jeremy Crawshaw, I'm going to give a stud because he was fantastic. Obviously, you don't want to be talking about your punter a whole lot because it means your offense isn't being efficient. But with how much Broncos country was just hating on this dude, I got to give him a stud here for week 1. But that wraps up the studs and duds. Let me know who else should have made this list. You can make an argument for Will Lutz. I thought he played fantastic, making both of his field goals and PATs. There's a couple other guys who could be here for studs and duds, but I'm going to wrap it up here. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below if you did enjoy this video. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.